Step into the shadows where whispered tales linger. In this playlist, we uncover urban legends, stories born in back alleys, abandoned roads, and the corners of your mind. Some say they're just myths, others aren't so sure. Listen if you dare.
I didn't notice the woman until she was already standing under the streetlight. The fog had been heavy all night, the kind that muffles sound and makes every shadow bleed into another, so I didn't hear her footsteps. One moment, the sidewalk ahead was empty. The next, she was there, unmoving, head tilted slightly, her face hidden behind the shimmer of a pale surgical mask. I slowed without meaning to. There was nothing unusual about someone wearing a mask. Not these days. But there was something in the way she stood. Too still, too patient. She didn't look at her phone or adjust her bag. She just waited, as if she had known I was coming and had been waiting for me all along. I thought about crossing the street. Then her head twitched toward me, almost imperceptibly, but it was enough to freeze my legs in place. Her hair was long, black and wet-looking, strands clinging to the fabric of her coat. I could see her eyes now, enormous, unblinking, and too dark to reflect the lamplight. The air around me felt colder, and the faint hum of traffic from the main road seemed to die away. She took a step forward. Her shoes made no sound on the damp pavement. "Am I beautiful?" Her voice was soft, almost polite, but it slid into my ears like a knife. My throat tightened instantly. My first thought, stupid, reflexive, was, she's trying to scam me. The kind of setup where someone distracts you while an accomplice comes from behind. But the street was empty. The fog swirled and retreated from her shape as if afraid to touch her. I swallowed. Yes. She didn't move. Her head tilted a fraction more to one side, the hair shifting like wet silk. Even like this, her hands moved toward her mask, slow enough that I could hear the faint brush of her nails against the elastic. Something in me screamed to turn away, to run, but my body refused. My muscles trembled, useless, as she peeled the mask downward. Her mouth, no, not a mouth, but a wound, stretched from ear to ear. The flesh was raw, wet, and shining, the edges jagged as though cut with something serrated. Her teeth were wrong. Too long, too pointed, each one the color of bone left in the dirt for years. Her lips, if they could be called lips, were slick with a dark crimson that gleamed in the light. The smell hit me next. Not just rot. There was something metallic, hot, and alive about it, like the scent of blood on your hands that won't wash away no matter how hard you scrub. My stomach knotted so violently I thought I might vomit. Her eyes widened, her pupils swallowing the irises. She smiled, or whatever passed for a smile, the torn skin pulling farther apart, stretching to reveal more of those predatory teeth. "How about now?" I didn't think. "Yes," I said, my voice trembling so hard the word barely formed. She laughed. It was not human. It was wet, bubbling, and hungry. Her breath came in a rush, hot and damp against my face. I felt something inside me break, a fragile thread of reason snapping. Her hand darted forward, faster than I could react. Long fingers, the nails sharp and blackened, gripped my chin. She tilted my head left, right, as though inspecting a piece of meat at the market. "You'll do." My vision blurred, my body finally jolting into motion. I shoved her hand away, stumbled back, and turned to run. The fog seemed thicker now, wrapping around me like gauze, swallowing every street lamp. I couldn't hear my own footsteps. Then there was a whisper right at my ear, though I had put several feet between us. "You can't run from me." I spun around. She was gone. I thought maybe I'd imagined her, some sick trick of exhaustion and fog. But then I heard the sound. Not footsteps, not breathing. Something else. The wet, deliberate scrape of metal against metal. I forced myself to keep moving, every muscle screaming for me to look over my shoulder. But knowing that if I did, I might not survive the sight, I crossed into a better lit part of the street, my mind already convincing me to find a crowded place, call someone, anything. That's when I saw her again. She was standing across the intersection, the same exact posture, the same tilt of her head. Her coat hung stiffly around her, as if there were something underneath it she was hiding. She didn't blink. The fog curled around her ankles but left the rest of her untouched. The light changed, but she didn't cross. I walked faster, pretending not to notice, but every instinct screamed that she was matching my movements, waiting for the right moment. The street ended near an old shopping arcade, most of it abandoned now. Neon signs flickered weakly in the damp air, and the closed shutters of shops reflected warped versions of myself as I passed. I kept glancing at the reflections, half hoping they'd show me something that wasn't there. They didn't, until one did. In the warped glass, I saw her. She was walking right behind me. I spun so fast I almost slipped. The street was empty. But in the glass, still there, she leaned toward me, the torn mouth opening wider, impossibly wider, until her jaw unhinged like a snake's. I screamed. It tore out of me in a raw, animal sound I didn't know I could make. When I looked again, the reflection was just me. I didn't remember unlocking my apartment door. I didn't remember the stairs. I only remember slamming the lock shut and standing there, shaking so hard I could hear my teeth chatter. My phone was dead, though I was sure it had been at 60% earlier. I turned on every light. The window glass was dark, too dark, reflecting only my lit apartment, my pale face. I pulled the curtains tight. In the bathroom, I splashed water on my face, trying to force myself to breathe evenly. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. When I looked up into the mirror, she was there. Not behind me, no worse. She was in the reflection instead of me. My clothes, my posture, but her face, her mouth stretched wide, teeth slick, eyes huge and hungry. Her voice came from the mirror. "Am I beautiful?" I staggered back, slamming into the wall. My shoulder popped with pain, but I barely noticed. I didn't answer. I couldn't. She tilted her head exactly as before. Even like this? The reflection's jaw opened wider, skin splitting fresh down into the neck. Blood, too much blood, poured from the corners of her mouth, flooding the sink in the mirror, though my real sink stayed clean. "Answer me." The words vibrated in my bones, each syllable scratching inside my skull. I ran. Out of the bathroom, past the kitchen to the bedroom. I shut the door and pressed my back against it, chest heaving. That's when I heard her breathing on the other side. Slow, steady, and far too close. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't even sit still. Every creak of the apartment made my skin crawl, every shadow twisted into her. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but my phone had died as if drained of life, leaving me cut off. I felt like the walls themselves were watching, waiting for me to make the slightest mistake. I tried to convince myself it was impossible. She wasn't real. She couldn't be. That mask, the slit mouth, the way she vanished and reappeared like a phantom. It had to be some nightmare bleeding into my waking hours. But when I checked the mirror again, just one quick glance, my reflection didn't match me. Her eyes stared out from my own face, black and endless, and her mouth opened impossibly wide. My heart slammed against my ribs. I backed away and the image followed, creeping along the glass like liquid. Her voice, low and deliberate, whispered, "Why are you afraid? I only want to know." I couldn't respond. My throat had locked, my limbs trembling uncontrollably. I wanted to run, to escape, but I knew somehow I wouldn't make it. She didn't follow in normal ways. She came through corners, through reflections, through the thin cracks of fear you didn't even notice. I spent the night on the floor in the middle of my apartment, lights blazing, staring at every reflective surface. Windows, mirrors, even the metal handle of the refrigerator glinted and hinted at her shape. Each time I thought she was gone, I'd see her again, closer, waiting, hungry. By the time morning crawled in, gray and heavy, I realized I hadn't blinked properly for hours. My eyes stung, and my stomach burned with the acid of panic. But the apartment was empty, the reflection back to normal. Sunlight streaming weakly through the curtains, birds chirping outside. I told myself, she leaves during the day, she can't come in daylight. She's just a ghost story, a myth someone told to scare children. I laughed bitterly at the thought. My hands are still shaking. That's not sane. I decided I had to leave, go outside, face it, get some proof somehow. The street outside was quiet. Too quiet. Fog lingered, thin but persistent, curling at the edges of the buildings. My feet dragged as I walked, almost reluctant, as if they knew the danger. And then I saw her. standing under a flickering street lamp, that same impossible posture, her head tilted. The mask was back in place. Her hand rested casually against the coat pocket, but the way her shoulders moved, almost imperceptibly, suggested she was ready to strike. I froze. "Am I beautiful?" she asked, voice soft, polite, deadly. I wanted to run. My instincts screamed at me, but I remembered the stories. Say yes, you die anyway. Say no, you die anyway. There was no winning. I whispered, "I don't know." Her head tilted further, the mask pulling down as she revealed the slit mouth once more. Fresh blood glistened along the torn skin, dripping in slow, rhythmic drops to the wet pavement. Her teeth gleamed, yellowed and sharp, glinting like broken glass. And she smiled. "I see," she said. I stumbled backward. My heel caught the curb and I fell onto the street. My palms scraped the rough asphalt. The taste of dirt and blood, not mine, I realized with horror, filled my mouth. Then she was on me, not in the normal way. She didn't run. She glided, impossible speed, closing the distance in a heartbeat. Her hands clamped onto my shoulders, her nails biting into my flesh through my coat. Her mouth opened wider, wider than humanly possible, and I could hear the rip of her skin stretching, a wet, tearing sound that made me gag. I tried to push her away, but it was like trying to shove a wall. My hands hit nothing solid, only air and the sickening pull of her presence. And then I felt it, a cold, sharp slice across my cheek. Pain flared hot and jagged, and I realized with horror that my face had been scored, just like hers. Blood ran down my face in a thick line. My own reflection in a nearby shop window made me scream. My cheek was cut from ear to mouth, the skin raw and glistening. She crouched, almost casual, her head level with mine, eyes black and endless. Now she whispered, "You are like me." I scrambled backward, leaving deep scratches along my palms and knees. My vision blurred with tears and blood. My body screamed for escape, but every alley and street ahead seemed to stretch impossibly, leading me nowhere. The fog thickened. Shapes moved in it, impossible, twisting shadows that shouldn't exist. I could hear faint whispers, hundreds of them, carried on the damp wind. And then I saw them, reflections in puddles on the asphalt. Faces, not mine, not hers. Faces with the same torn, bleeding mouths, staring up at me from the water, grinning. My breath came in ragged gasps. I stumbled into a narrow alley, thinking I could lose her. But the alley was too quiet, too narrow, and at the far end, where the light barely touched, she waited. I thought, maybe I can fight. I grabbed a broken pipe from a pile of trash. Metal clanged as I raised it, ready to swing. My hands were shaking so violently I barely held it. She tilted her head, the slit in her face twisting in a grotesque imitation of curiosity. "You think that will stop me?" Her voice wasn't just a voice now. It was in my chest, rattling my bones, vibrating through my skin. I felt the cold of her mouth against my spine without her even touching me. I swung the pipe blindly. It passed through her like air, a sickening suction sound accompanying it. My stomach heaved. I could feel my face twitching with terror. And then she was closer. Her hands on my throat, her face inches from mine. Her jaw opened, stretching, tearing the air between us. I could see the glint of her teeth, the wet folds of flesh, and smell the coppery tang of blood. I thought I was going to die right there, screaming in that alley, but somehow a spark of will ignited. I elbowed her in the stomach, hard. She staggered back, a wet, squelching sound echoing in the alley. I ran. Every step sent pain shooting up my legs, my cheek burning where she had carved me. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to move. When I reached the main street again, the fog had receded slightly, but the street lamp under which she had waited was dark, empty, silent. I dared to hope. Then I saw my reflection in a car window. She was there, not behind me, not somewhere else. In the reflection, breathing against my own image, smiling with that impossible mouth, those black, endless eyes. And I realized the truth. She didn't just follow you. She lives inside your fear, inside the mirrors, the puddles, the glass. Anywhere she can reach through perception, she's there. Waiting, watching, knowing. I screamed, and the reflection screamed back. I didn't sleep again that night. I stayed on the floor of my apartment, pressed against the wall, trying to will my eyes to stay open. Every reflective surface glinted with her presence. Even the polished wooden floor reflected the faintest hint of movement, though I dared not look directly. I was too afraid of what I might see. By morning, exhaustion had hollowed me out. My cheek throbbed, raw and tender, but I could feel more than just pain. I could feel her, the way she lingered in my thoughts, in the spaces between my breaths, like a shadow I couldn't shake. I had to leave. I had to find someone, anyone. But as soon as I stepped outside, she was there. Standing under the same flickering street lamp, the mask covering her grotesque mouth again, hands hanging loosely at her sides. The fog clung to her like wet silk, curling around her legs but leaving the upper half of her body unnaturally sharp, impossibly real. She didn't walk toward me. She didn't need to. Am I beautiful? I stumbled backward. My voice failed me. My chest tightened so badly it hurt to breathe. You know, she said, tilting her head, you have to answer. The world around us seemed to fade. Cars, streetlights, distant sounds, all swallowed by the fog that clung to her like a living thing. And when she tilted her head, that subtle movement, I felt a pull. Not a physical pull, but something in my mind, forcing me to focus, to obey. I whispered, barely audible, yes. She lowered the mask again, revealing her slit mouth, slick with fresh dark blood. Her teeth glinted in the weak light. She leaned toward me, her long black hair clinging to her face, and I could see the torn flesh quiver with anticipation. You're lying, she said softly. Her hands shot out, not grabbing, not touching, but pressing against my shoulders. I felt my bones freeze, my blood run cold. Her presence pressed into me from every side, tightening around my chest, my neck, my skull. Then she smiled. Not the casual, almost polite tilt from before. This was a predator's smile, wide and wet, and she opened her mouth just enough for me to hear the wet tearing sound. It echoed inside my head. You have to choose, she whispered, voice sliding under my skin, or I will choose for you. I stumbled back, hitting the curb. My hands scraped along the asphalt. Pain shot up my arms. I wanted to run. I had to run. But the fog thickened around me, hiding the street ahead, and somehow she was everywhere at once. I thought about the stories I had read, the legends. Say yes, she kills anyway. Say no, she kills anyway. Say maybe, she chooses. I had tried yes once, and my face had been carved just like hers. What would maybe do? I whispered it, trembling, maybe. Her laughter erupted like wet cloth tearing. It filled the fog, every corner, every empty space. It wasn't just a sound, it was a movement, a presence, a living thing that wrapped around me and squeezed. My chest heaved, my vision swirled. And then she lunged, not with her legs, not with her body, with her presence. She slammed into me, invisible yet overwhelming, and I fell to the pavement. Pain ripped through my arms and legs, but worse, was the sensation of her teeth pressing against my mind, biting at my consciousness. I screamed, a raw animal sound, and felt something slide across my cheek. My hand went to my face and my fingers came away bloody, fresh. She had carved me again. This time deeper, jagged, and the pain was electric, screaming through nerves I didn't know I had. You're mine now, she whispered, leaning over me. Her hair stuck to her wet, pale face, dripping blood that wasn't all hers. You can't leave. You can't hide. You can't survive. I tried to crawl away, but every step brought me back to her. The street stretched impossibly long, and no matter how far I moved, I saw her at the end of it, waiting, smiling, dripping blood like some nightmare river. The fog rose. It wrapped around my legs, my body, and I felt myself sinking. Not physically, but into the space between fear and reality. My reflection appeared on the puddles, dozens of them. My own face, but twisted. My cheeks split like hers, wet and glistening, teeth jagged and gleaming. I screamed again. The sound felt hollow, echoing back from the puddles, distorted, not my own. And then I saw it. The first shadow of movement inside the reflection, not me, but her. Stretching, leaning closer, pressing against the glassy surface like water. I could feel her waiting for the answer, my hesitation, my fear, and I realized with a gut-wrenching certainty that she didn't just ask to know if she was beautiful. She asked to claim you. Each answer, each hesitation, each attempt to flee brought her closer, into your skin, into your body, into your reflection. She didn't just kill, she transformed. And if you resisted too long, you disappeared. I fell to my knees in the street. Blood ran down my face, the pain too sharp to ignore, the terror too deep to escape. And I saw her, standing at the end of the street, tilting her head, smiling, waiting. I tried to answer. My mouth was dry, my throat locked, but I had to say something, anything. Yes, I whispered. The fog closed in instantly. It pressed against my skin, cold and wet, dragging me down. I could feel her presence crawl into my bones, into my muscles, into my blood. Her wet, jagged teeth grazed my mind. My reflection screamed back at me, twisting into her shape. And I knew, even before the world tilted and the street dissolved into shadows, that I had already lost. I woke, or thought I woke, on a cold, wet floor that wasn't my apartment. The fog clung thick and suffocating, curling around my limbs, pressing against my chest like a living thing. I tried to scream, but my mouth wouldn't open. My voice felt stolen, ripped out by the presence that hovered over me. She was there. Of course she was there, standing impossibly tall, the mask in place again, her hair hanging wet and heavy. Her eyes gleamed black, empty, endless. And though she didn't move, I felt her pulse against my own, like a predator leaning into its prey. I touched my face. My cheek was gone. The raw, jagged wound she had carved earlier had been stitched together, wrong, too tight, too smooth. It stretched unnaturally, pulling my lips into a permanent, silent scream. The pain was gone, but something worse remained. The awareness of her in me, in every nerve, in every blink. I tried to move. My legs trembled under me. My arms felt like they didn't belong to me, and then I noticed my reflection in a pool of water at my side. Or rather, them, not me. The face staring back was hers. The slit mouth, the black, endless eyes. My own features distorted beneath hers, melting, twisting into something grotesque. I reached up, desperate, fingers shaking, but the skin beneath my nails resisted. It was no longer mine. She crouched over me, tilting her head in that way that always made my stomach turn. The wet sound of her voice slid into my mind. Now you understand, you can't escape me. Tried to scream, tried to pull away, tried to fight the sensation of her teeth in my skull, of her claws in my bones. But my body refused. My limbs moved on their own, guided by her will. Every thought I tried to form was interrupted by her whispering, questioning, testing. You are mine, you feel me, you want me, say it. I shook my head violently, but she forced my mouth to move. Say it. I want you. My own voice was wet, alien, echoing from a throat that wasn't fully mine. She smiled, that impossible wet curve of torn flesh and teeth, and the world shifted. The alley I had been running through dissolved. The fog became thick as black water, drowning the edges of the world. Shapes moved in the mist, faces pressed against surfaces that shouldn't exist. Reflections in puddles, cracks in walls, faint gleams in the wet asphalt, all mirrored her, all grinning with the same jagged, bloody mouth. And they were alive, not just alive, but hungry. They pressed toward me, brushing against me with claws and teeth, with whispers and wet, ragged breaths. And I realized with a cold certainty, each one had been someone before, someone who had failed, someone she had claimed. I struggled to understand, to hold on to myself, but every movement only drew her deeper into my body. Every blink was her eyes in mine, every heartbeat her pulse in mine. And then the first transformation came. My fingers elongated, the nails blackening, curling like broken claws. My tongue thickened, my teeth lengthened, sharp and jagged, wet with saliva I hadn't produced. The skin along my cheeks and jaw stretched tight, pulling my features into a permanent, grotesque smile. Pain shot through me like lightning, then vanished, leaving only awareness. Awareness of her in every cell. I tried to fight it, to scream, to escape, But the whispers came again, hundreds of them, wet and soft and cruel. Say it, admit it, accept it. I accept, I whispered. She leaned closer, her wet hair brushing my face. Her breath reeked of blood, decay, and something else I couldn't name, something that made my stomach twist. And with that touch, the rest of me changed. My legs bent strangely. My spine curved unnaturally. My joints cracked and popped as though reshaping. My skin felt alive, crawling, tightening. And when I looked at the puddle beneath me again, I didn't just see her face. I saw mine, stretched and torn, but underneath, the faint shadow of what I had been. I screamed, though it was no longer a sound. It was a vibration, a pulse that echoed in the fog, calling to the others. She straightened, towering over me, and whispered, "Now you belong to me. Now you walk the streets. Now you ask the question." I didn't understand at first. Walk the streets? Ask the question? But then the fog cleared just slightly and I saw it. Another figure, terrified, alone, walking too close to the alley. My heart, or what had been my heart, pounded. Instinct, hunger, need. And I realized with cold, horrifying clarity what she had made me. I was her, not just like her, not just claimed by her. I was her in part, and now I would pass it on. The terror, the choice, the question. I lifted my head, the torn mouth stretching wider than humanly possible. My voice, hers and mine, and something in between echoed in the alley. Am I beautiful? The figure froze. The fear mirrored mine from hours ago, yesterday, moments ago. My body itched with anticipation, with hunger, with a terrible joy. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to, but I couldn't stop. I was hers. And now she had me walking in the world, the question ready to trap the next soul. The figure whispered, tried to answer, hesitated, and I knew the next moments would decide everything. Their fear became mine, our terror entwined. And I smiled. A wet, impossible, jagged smile. The alley was silent except for the fog rolling over the puddles, reflecting 100 mouths, 100 faces. Each one mine, each one hers, each one waiting for the next. And I understood fully, with the clarity of someone drowning and yet breathing at the same time. There is no escape. Once she touches you, once she tests you, once you feel her inside, the question never ends. It echoes through reflections, puddles, and glass. It echoes through the streets, through every terrified heartbeat. And now, I am the echo. The fog was thick enough to choke on. Every step I took felt wrong, sinking, heavy, as though the pavement itself had turned to wet clay trying to swallow me. I couldn't tell which way I'd come or where I was going. The streetlights flickered weakly through the mist, each one casting shadows that twisted like they were alive. And through all of it, I could hear her. Not her voice, not yet. Not the one that asks the question. But a chorus, hundreds of whispers, wet and ragged like mouths opening underwater, echoing in my head. And then I saw her. Or them. Reflections, everywhere. In puddles, shop windows, shattered glass. Faces pressed forward, mouths torn, teeth glinting in the dim light. My own face appeared in one, pale and terrified. And then it split. Not physically, but in perception, as if her presence was pouring into me, twisting what I knew of myself. I stumbled back, hitting a wet wall, and the smell hit me. Copper, blood, decay. My cheek stung, and when I touched it, I recoiled. Fresh blood ran down the side of my face. My reflection smiled at me, but it wasn't me. It was her. And I realized, with a cold panic, that she could appear anywhere, in any reflection, in any shiny surface, and she could reach me through that thin barrier. I tried to run. The mist seemed to push against me. Each step I took multiplied the echo of my own fear. And then I heard it, the faint sound of scraping. Not behind me, not in front, but inside me. My bones, my muscles. Something was moving, something that didn't belong to me. I dropped to my knees gagging and looked into a puddle at my feet. My own mouth. No, not mine. Wet, jagged teeth gleamed from the reflection. A slit had formed, tearing across my cheeks from the corner of my lips. I shrieked. a high, ragged sound that felt foreign in my throat. From the fog, a figure emerged, one I had seen before or thought I had. Tall, hair black and dripping, the mask in place. But there were more, multiple forms, sliding out of reflections, merging and twisting. Their mouths moved silently in sync with mine. All of them her, all of them me. Answer, the chorus whispered, not in words but in sensation, sliding along my nerves, pressing into my skull. I tried to scream, "No, no!" but the sound came out as wet tearing, a sound not my own. Panic clawed at me. I ran blindly through the fog, but every street I thought I recognized bent in impossible ways, like the city itself was reshaping. Reflections appeared in the street, in the windows, in the sky. Each one a mirror of my terror, and each one a doorway. One puddle, shallow and dim, revealed a hand reaching toward me. I jerked back, but the hand emerged anyway, gliding out, wet and pale, claws stretching toward my face. I fell backward. My cheek scraped along the wet asphalt. Pain shot through me, but it wasn't as sharp as the terror. The sensation of her claws, her teeth, her presence crawling under my skin, merging with my blood. I pressed my hands to my face. My mouth trembled. My lips were already tearing, stretching without my consent. The whispers grew louder, wet and ragged, all echoing in my skull. "Am I beautiful?" I shook violently. "No!" I screamed. The word barely left my lips before the fog vibrated, responding, twisting. My reflection smirked. My own scream echoed back from every surface, warped and wet as if mocking me. Then the first touch, cold, slick, impossible. Her fingers or claws slid across my cheek, not outside but inside. My nerve endings screamed. Pain and pleasure merged. The slit on my face opened a little wider. I could feel her grin spreading across my skin, across my soul. I tried to fight. I had to fight. I ran blindly, tearing down streets that seemed to stretch forever. Every reflective surface I passed became her. Every puddle, every window, every polished car surface revealed a slit mouth, a jagged grin, and eyes that were endless black. And then I tripped, fell face first into a puddle. My own reflection stared back at me, impossibly sharp. And then, impossibly, her face emerged over mine. Wet black hair plastered to pale skin, mask pulled aside to reveal that gleaming slit. She bent close, teeth glinting, wet breath pressing into my cheeks. "You are mine," she whispered inside my head, not out loud. Every thought I tried to form was her whispering. "You cannot run. You cannot hide. You cannot survive." I tried to scream again. The sound came out in wet tearing, echoing from every reflective surface around me. Panic surged. My lungs burned. My heartbeat hammered like a drum in a coffin. And then it happened. The first transformation. My fingers stiffened, curling unnaturally. My mouth twitched. My teeth lengthened. My reflection grinned. Not me. Not mine. Hers. And through the reflection, I felt the others. The countless trapped, claimed, twisted souls who had failed. They pressed against me, sliding into my bones, my nerves, my blood. And then the final horror, the awareness. Not only was she inside me, she was me. Every tremor in my body, every beat of my heart, every blink of my eye. Hers. The question was no longer hers. It was mine. I was the echo, the walking terror, the collector. A passerby appeared in the fog, young, terrified, alone. My body trembled, yet moved toward them. My mouth stretched wet and wide, my voice sliding in echoes. "Am I beautiful?" The victim froze. The fog pressed around them. Reflections in puddles multiplied them 100 times. And I realized with a gut-wrenching certainty, there was no escape. Not for them. Not for me. Not for anyone. I smiled. My reflection grinned, and the fog swallowed the street. The fog was thicker than ever, rolling over the city like a living thing. The streets I had stumbled through now seemed endless, twisting impossibly, reflecting 100 distorted images of myself, hers. Each step I took felt heavy, like I was sinking into some unseen mire. My fingers had fully curled into claws, my teeth long and jagged, my cheeks permanently torn into that wet, cruel grin. I was no longer me. I was the question, the terror, the reflection that reached through puddles, through glass, through shadows. The figure in the fog froze as I approached. Their eyes were wide, their breath rapid, trembling with fear. The puddles around us rippled, multiplying their image into dozens, hundreds, thousands, each one grinning. And then I asked, "Am I beautiful?" They stammered, tried to answer, tried to move. The fog twisted, carrying whispers, wet and cruel, pressing into my mind, pressing into theirs. Every hesitation, every heartbeat, every attempt to flee only made the terror stronger. Their reflection in the puddle began to change, stretching into that same grotesque, slit-mouthed grin. Their eyes widened in horror as the transformation began. I felt it too. The thrill, the inevitability. The wet, cold joy of claiming another, their fear surged into me, pulsing through my veins, intertwining with her, with me, with every other soul trapped in this endless cycle. And then it happened, the final merging. Their body convulsed, skin stretching, jaw tearing, fingers elongating, nails blackening into claws. Every scream they made was swallowed by the fog, only to echo back distorted, mingled with mine, with hers, with all of the others. I could feel their mind fracturing, dissolving into the chorus of trapped souls that had been collected before. The cycle repeated, over and over, unstoppable. I walked among them, watching reflections in puddles twist with hundreds of slit mouths, each one asking the same question. The streets became a maze of fear, mirrors, and reflections. Every corner I turned, every shadow I passed, I saw them. The victims, the claimed, the echoes of her, of me, of all of us. And I knew the truth with horrifying clarity. There is no end. There is no escape. I tried to remember who I had been before she touched me. A person, a body, a mind. But it was gone, replaced entirely by her, by the question, by the hunger. The awareness of her inside me was absolute. Every reflection, every puddle, every gleam of glass was a doorway. And I had become the doorway. I had become the collector. Another figure appeared in the fog, young, frightened, alone. Their eyes widened as they saw the distorted reflections, and I walked toward them, my body moving as hers had taught me, my mouth wet and wide, my voice sliding out in echoes. "Am I beautiful?" The question hung in the fog, a living thing, vibrating in the air, in the puddles, in the shadows. Their heartbeat raced. Every instinct screamed to run. Every reflection around them began to warp, stretch, and grinning back at them. They could not escape. They could not survive. The cycle was complete, eternal, unbreakable. And then the fog swallowed us all. I am everywhere now. In puddles, in glass, in shadows. I wait, patient, eternal. I ask the question. And every time someone hesitates, every time they falter, every time fear takes hold, I feed, I grow, I continue. There is no escape, there is no end. There is only the slit mouth, the endless question, the reflections, and me. I am her. I am the echo, and I will find you. Thank you for listening. I kindly ask you to drop a like and subscribe and share this video with fellow horror story fan.